Namaskaram everybody and happy Deepavali. Bo invites you to the Gita for Yuva series in which we talk about the Gita and have discussions about it. I would personally like to explore more into it and you can now also join it on this occasion. Namaskaram, I am Rishi Musti and welcome to the Gita for Yuva series. Join me today as we continue with chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, the yoga of self-control and meditation. So last when we left off, basically Krishna is stating the importance of all the duties and all the luxury that you should leave behind when what is basically the difference between the duties that you're supposed to do and the duties that you're doing for desire. He also explains what renunciation is. So chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, is all about self-control and meditation. Lord Krishna continues that you should not make that mistake of thinking that somebody who gives up his own duties also with his own like luxuries and things like that, don't think that he is also a sannyasi. So you may also now interrupt me and say, why Krishna, a sannyasi also renounces these actions? No, he does not renounce. He grows out of it all. Because a householder cannot renounce his duties, secular and sacred, for he has achieved or gained nothing worthwhile to renounce. He will be only an escapist, running away from his duties. So one example is that you have chores to do, right? And you keep on pushing the time to do it. You say like, 3 o'clock, okay, and when it reaches 3 o'clock, you're like, okay, 3:45. After 3:45, you still don't do it. You keep on pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And sannyasa means renunciation of all ego, and this is achieved through relinquishing tyaga, the rewards of actions, karma phalam. Sannyasis and yogis are the people who discharge this knowledge, their duties well, in all fields of social and human endeavor without demanding any credit for themselves. So now Lord Krishna continues that he basically tells Arjuna that you should not make the mistake of thinking that a householder who basically gives up all the sacrifices, the so-called sacrifices, but also runs away from his own duties and leaves his own duties is a sannyasi. Do not believe that. He says, Krishna also continues to say that you may now interrupt me and say, why Krishna, a sannyasi, also renounces these actions? Like eventually. Krishna says that there's a difference. He doesn't renounce them. He simply grows out of them. So like good actions, like your own duty that you're supposed to do, eventually you're going to grow out of that. Like you will become more and more accustomed to that. You'll become more and more used to it. It won't be seen as a whole duty to you. Eventually, you won't have to do that at all. If you're if you're a student, you're trying to do your homework, right? Eventually for the next few years you are going to have to do your homework, but after you graduate college and all that, homework is not really a thing. Basically what he's saying is you grow accustomed to it. It doesn't really seem like a duty to you. When you reach that point of a level, that is already the next stage. That's what he's saying.
Namaskaram. Now I will be chanting the slokams of the 6th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Om Srimad Bhagavad Gita Shashtodhyayah Dhyana Yogah. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. The blessed Lord said, Undoubtedly, O mighty arm, the mind is difficult to control and is restless. But by practice, O son of Kunti, and by dispassion, it is restrained. That was the 35th slokam.
So sannyasa itself means renunciation of all ego, and this is achieved through relinquishing, which is tyaga, the rewards of actions. Basically, this is like going all the way back to even the first chapter of Vishada Yoga and second chapter Sankhya Yoga. It's basically the same principles. What Krishna is saying is that you should not be worried about what you get out of these actions, the fruits out of these actions that you get. You should not be worried. You should not be worried what you get out of them. You have to completely drop that. You should not expect anything in return for what you do. Like Krishna is basically saying that the fruit of these actions, you should not worry. You don't worry about what you get out of these actions. You should drop all that. You should not expect anything in return for what you do, nor should you expect really like a reward for it, is basically what he's saying. And this ties back even all the way to like Vishada Yoga and Sankhya Yoga. As I said, it's the same principles, that abandoning that is the first step to even abandoning luxuries itself and all that. It's basically the first step to doing that. Sannyasa and yoga are complementary to each other, meaning without the renunciation of that ego, the sannyasa, you can't really relinquish the anxieties to enjoy the fruits of the action. The renunciation of the fruits itself, the tyaga, also you need to also renounce that ego, the sannyasa. Both thus go in hand, meaning you need one to do the other, you need the other to do this one. You can't just directly skip to one. It's all intertwined with each other, like I said in last chapter. He who wants to improve must work, either prompted by desires or otherwise. Meaning, if you want to improve in anything, you have to work somehow or the other, even if it's prompted by desire. Even if it's prompted by desire, not being idle is still a very, 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 very basic step to that self-realization itself. At this stage, he can be called more as a sannyasi and a yogi. He's not anxious anymore to reap rewards, and hence is a renouncer. Meaning, the point where you become a sannyasi, right? It literally doesn't mean like you wear saffron clothes, you tie your hair up in a bundle, you grow a mustache and a beard, you sit under a tree and pray for like 24/7. It doesn't literally mean that. You have to get to the point where you're just doing actions, not expecting anything in return, not really expecting the rewards, like not even thinking about it. That's when you can be called a sannyasi, even if you know it or not. Okay. And he's ever devoted to the service of Narayana, a yogi too. Such a seeker can then walk easily on the path of meditation, from where the full experience of the infinite self is not difficult indeed. Meaning, as you progress more and more further, it becomes easier and easier to get to the higher levels, because these lower levels are the hardest part to bumping yourself up. It's like a kind of like a pad for bumping yourself up. Everything after that is basically easy, because if you let go of all these luxuries and the rewards and the fruits, eventually doing everything else will be very much easier to you, rather than if you just directly try to fly. If you like if you're taking wings, right, the early base, and you try to fly, you probably will fly because if you have wings, right? But if you're just standing on a building and just trying to jump off, try to fly high, it's going to be much more harder to fly.
Now we go on to the 40th. पार्थनैवेह नामुत्र विनाशस्तस्य विद्यते न हि कल्याणकृत्कश्चिद् दुर्गतिं तात गच्छति. The blessed Lord said, O Partha, neither in this world nor in the next world is there destruction for him. None, verily, who strives to do good. O my son, ever comes to peace.
So Krishna is again restating to Arjuna that if you want to realize the Supreme Lord, you constantly and tirelessly strive. You cannot stop a little bit, a little bit, and a little bit. Push yourself for far limits. Both the good and the evil instincts, right, that we have inside us. We must make an honest attempt to conquer those evil instincts by the good ones. Not again looking what we get by it. We're just looking to destroy that evil inside of us. A yogi who is in the path of perfection finds all of this joy, sorrow, honor, dishonor, pleasure, and pain. They don't disturb him at all, right? But with the knowledge he's acquired from everything he's experienced so far, and also from his own personal experiences, he contemplates constantly upon the Lord. Meaning, the self-realization is basically the God. So Arjuna tells, "Tell me, Krishna, what are the necessary prerequisites for meditation? I mean, how are we to practice contemplation upon the Lord?" So in the last chapter now he's saying, okay, how do we get to the initial base to start launching off? Now he's saying, okay, how do we worship that Lord itself? Does it mean literal meditation or like what does it actually mean? Krishna says that man who is progressing to that path of perfection, who wants to practice that path of perfection, and he doesn't want to be disturbed by all the luxuries or anything like that, right? Must first of all choose a solitary spot away from the crowd that in the beginning might or might not disturb him. Like literally just an empty space. He's basically saying the environment around you really matters to meditation. He's saying like you have to stay in a very calm, like maybe if there's a lot of trees around you, that's a good place to stay. If you're in a room, there's no people around you, that's a good place to stay. Otherwise, bad examples would be like in a party or something like that, or just like in a living room with everybody else would not be a very good example. Then he says basically he should sit on the ground. He should put a skin and over that again spread a piece of clean cloth. He should sit in a very comfortable posture. So he's going even down to the very last details about how to even sit properly for meditation movement. Basically he's saying then he should direct his mind to think of God and God alone with no other thought to disturb him. I remember when I was like I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, right? Whenever we were doing Gayatri Mantram, my dad would always tell me to just picture a black a black edge kind of thing, and just inside that just any god that comes to your mind and absolutely nothing else. He told me that if you know that this works, okay, if you know you're thinking about this long enough, if you open your eyes, there should be a greenish hue when you look, kind of thing. And that does happen. If you close your eyes for an incredibly long time and you open your eyes, you will see like a greenish hue or a bluish hue instead of just the regular thing. Basically he's saying he should sit erect and steady with his head, neck, and trunk or nose in a straight line, and then as through gazing steadily in the direction of the tip of his nose, contemplate among the Lord. So a serene and calm mind, fearlessness, physical and mental control, which is a brahmacharya, moderation in food and sleep, and total concentration above the Lord are factors that should help one to succeed in the meditation. Meaning just alone sitting crisscross applesauce and just thinking about God is not really going to, it's not the only thing that's going to help, right? You need to have a clean environment. You should not have any fear. You should have physical and mental control. Right? You should not be thinking, oh, I have an exam tomorrow, oh, I have this, oh my God, right? Then moderation in food and sleep, and total concentration. Total concentration means total concentration. That is the hardest part about meditation, is getting yourself to totally concentrate. Even when I try to meditate about God, it's never possible for me to totally 100% concentrate. So basically saying these are the factors that help to succeed when meditation. And he should do all these to become more and more proficient in it. For yogi, his exaggerated zeal to achieve the ideal over indulges in good activities, say for like a charity, for example, a dana, he will fail to achieve the infinite ideal. Meaning if he's doing all this, like he's doing all this for that reward kind of thing. He's overdoing these things for that reward. He's saying, "Oh, I need to do a self-realization." First thing is you shouldn't even be knowing yourself that you're trying to do that self-realization. You're just trying to go on a good path. It's kind of what it is. If you overdo anything, or literally anything, not just this, then it's not going to work out. And he will miss the absolute goal and fall victim to the lesser ideal, the sense of charity, right? The giving this, giving to that. You're gonna think of that instead of thinking of the actual God. Therefore, single-minded, faithful devotion to the path of meditation alone can give us that necessary meditative power to experience the highest self, the Lord Infinite. Basically, a master of his senses, free from all the cravings and everything, right? Has a fresh mind and fresh everything. A yoga yukta is a one who is in constant communion with God. Basically, he through sincere efforts, physical, mental, anything, right? He's completely erased all of his evil instincts at all. This is like that middle point, or coming towards the final point. He fully develops his good instincts to the maximum. He remains so steady in his contemplation of God that his mind in meditation can be compared to steady flame itself. So Arjuna says, "Oh Krishna, please also tell me the stages of progress in the path of meditation and the final state of yoga." So now he's actually saying, like, okay, what are the actual stages that you can go through? So Krishna says, okay, with a mind purely tamed and like your mind is only contemplating about God and subdued, and an intellect purified and sublimated to dwell in the glorious state of Godhood, right? One attains the realm of infinite bliss that can be appreciated and described only by such a sublime intellect. This infinite joy has no comparison whatsoever. So you can't really compare it to anything. Like even the greatest luxuries of yours, you cannot compare it to what's happening over there. No amount of finite joy gathered from the external world and added up can even give us a vague idea of the infinite joy of the yogi in meditation. So a good example of this is that in this finite world, for example, right, we see a lot of paintings of God. We see him, let's say Vishnu, for example. Let's take Vishnu. It's just an example. If you search up Vishnu on Google, or if you ask somebody to show you a picture of Vishnu, it's not going to come in Google or anything that Vishnu is an infinite thing. It's like there's no color, there's no gender. They're going to give you a picture of a blue guy standing with 4 arms with a shankam, a gada, whatnot, right? But that is our finite, because that shows our finite experience of what Vishnu is. In reality, of course, he is much more than that. Everything we see on this earth is very, 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 very vague. What is compared to an actual God themselves. So basically, everything that's finite, basically, which is almost everything, combined multiplied times infinite cannot even compare. It doesn't even give us a vague idea. This is basically saying that you should not think, oh, I'll get so much, I'll get chocolate, I'll get this, I'll get that, I'll get so much TV, I'll get all this, right? It's not even a vague experience of what's happening over there.
Now we go to 42nd. अथवा योगिनामेव कुले भवति धीमताम् एतद्धि दुर्लभतरम् लोके जन्म यदीदृशम्. Or is he even born in the family of the wise yogis, where a birth like this is very difficult to obtain in this world? Thus completing the 6th chapter slokams. इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे ध्यानयोगो नाम 6ोऽध्यायः. नमस्कारः.
So now he says, from what I said so far, Arjuna, please do not come to the conclusion that it's easy to soar to the heights of such perfect meditation. Okay, because Krishna said before, you sit down, you basically down to the very posture and all that, right? It's easy to follow, but don't think that that's just it. Okay, he says this progress from the starting point to the finish is very, 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 very slow. These type of things actually they take lifetimes to complete. If you're starting at like an age like me, I'm only 12 years old right now. I probably won't even get to that point until I'm 70, because that's the amount of time it takes. Maybe even more than that. So Krishna again speaks, Arjuna, in spite of our intention to attain the goal, the mind by itself will gather from all sides desires which will hamper our spiritual, like obstacles, right? And by sheer force of and how can we face them successfully, Krishna? So he's basically saying like even when you try to start this path, right, there will be a lot of rocks and obstacles that come in your way, right? You will still see all these luxuries around you, right? It's almost impossible to not get drawn to it, right? So how do we do that? So Krishna says, Arjuna, in spite of our intention to attain that goal, mind by itself will gather from all that. Okay, they will already just stay away from it. Okay, but he says, by sheer force of determination, we should reject all desires, whatever be their nature. Okay, that's again coming back to controlling your senses. That senses, your senses are the ones that are telling you to go back, right? They're telling you to go to those luxuries and desires, right? I talked about it in the previous chapters about how to control that senses, but Krishna says about how to control that exact senses, about doing all that. But he's basically saying that the senses are the ones that do these. If you master those senses, then that's a huge leap. That's a huge step forward, and that's going to basically erase all obstacles from your way. So basically saying this mind is thus pure and sublime, and trained is not conquered forever. He says, okay, alright Krishna, but there must be people who struggled hard in the right direction to attain the ideal, constant contemplation upon the realization of Supreme, but have failed to attain it. You'll see a lot of historical figures throughout Indian history who have done all these things but have still failed to do it. So he's saying like, okay, they have left the earth but have not reached even heaven, right? So what that means, like if I take this path, right? If I die, for example, if I go to heaven, right? If I don't go to heaven, what happens to the people who don't? Although they've done this their entire life, this is the goal they're trying to reach, they still don't go to heaven and all. Why is this? Krishna says, Arjuna, no one who has struggled at least a little to remain in the state of contemplation, which leads to the realm of God, who has covered even a little distance in the pilgrimage and may not have reached the inner shrine, will ever come to ruin. Meaning, even like a small distraction that can bump your whole road away. That even a small, if you're going on a truck ride, right? I'm showing how to control your senses. That's like the controls of your car. You're like going past those obstacles, those rocks. You're driving past them, right? But even if you accidentally hit into one, if you accidentally get drawn to luxury, your whole car stops. You cannot go that path anymore, right? I mean, that basically your whole spiritual path is basically just gone. Even the smallest obstacle can change it. But he says, the value of the reward depends on the intensity and sincerity. Like if you're doing it just because of like, oh, I'm going to go to heaven, which is what most people do today. Like if they're expecting good reward, versus like if they're just doing it to that self-contemplation reward kind of thing. Depending on that, it's based on the intensity and sincerity. Then he says, after death, they will all go to heaven and enjoy pleasures there for years. Okay, they will do that. They will all come back to the world again and will be born in such happy surroundings, wealthy, pure, wise, and so on, depending on their past tendencies, the vasanas. So Arjuna says, how can a yoga brahta, a self-exile from the path of meditation, meaning you yourself, basically, self-exiled, so that you can do this meditation, you left everything behind. Bring the spiritual knowledge into the next birth. Meaning, even once you die, how do you bring that to the next birth? And how does that work? If you're a criminal in your past life, how does that affect what happens in this life? How does that even make sense? Krishna says, just as today is only a continuation of yesterday and tomorrow, Like life itself is a continuation. You have multiple lives to go. All that knowledge is still stored there. It's all still stored. As he said, this is like even like all the way back to Vishada Yoga. He's basically talking about the soul, about how you have like the soul is still there. It's not completely, only the body is gone. That soul is still there, meaning your same personality, your same attribute, your same everything, which will change over time. But that old ones, it gets put into a new body. Basically, therefore, when a yoga brahmana starts his study of scriptures, he can easily master knowledge therein because he started with a spiritual capital already acquired in his past births. It's like a launching point. It's like a capital. With your capital, you launch more, farther, you expand and expand and expand and expand. Basically, this Arjuna, understand well that the yogi who stands on the highest rung of the spiritual ladder, a man perfect and steady in meditation, is the noblest creature upon the earth, more than anything. Even among yoginis, those who can meditate upon me effortlessly and with faith are the best. They have already discovered their oneness with me, is basically what he's saying. So this was Dhyana Yoga chapter 6. It was quite a long chapter, but join us next time as we talk about Jnana Vijnana Yoga, which is chapter 7, the yoga of knowledge and wisdom.